Good afternoon, Algebra. It is Monday, Monday, April 6th. I pray that y'all had a good weekend. I'm very sorry about last Thursday and Friday. Something was up with my internet. It would not produce enough Wi-Fi or power to let me download anything. So I made the videos and stuff, but it wouldn't let me download. So we're just going to start over this week. We are still factoring trinomials, and this is where we left off last week. So I thought I'd start with this one this week. And you have 4x plus 20x minus 24. And so when you look at this one, remember I said the first thing you want to look for is you want to see if there's a GCF that you can pull out. And if you look, all of these are divisible by 4. So I'm going to pull that 4 out, and I'm going to make it 4 times the product of the quantities, and I'm going to set up my parentheses. Oh, okay. I'm not ready to do that yet. Okay, I just need to pull them out. 4 times the trinomial, x squared, and then 4 times 5x would give me 20x. So I'll have 4 plus 5x. And then 4 times negative 6 is going to give me negative 24. So remember we talked about how this 4, once you pull out that GCF, there's nothing else for it to do. It's just going to hang out on the outside. And so I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do 4 times the product of, and I'm going to break down my 2 quantities, my 2 binomials. Okay. And I know that if I have a negative as my last term, is that third term in my trinomial, that means that one of my binomials had to be a positive and one had to be a negative, because there's only one way I could FOIL and get that. It had to be the last, a positive times a negative gave me that negative. So I'm going to break up x, and then the factors of 6 are 1 and 6 and 2 and 3. Well, if one's a positive, one's a negative, I know I'm going to subtract. So 2 and 3 wouldn't subtract to give me 5, but 6 and 1 would. And since that 5 is a positive, that means that the 6 is going to have to go with the plus, because you have to keep that plus, and you keep the sign of the larger, which is that 6, and this is going to be that 1. And this would be our factored trinomial. 4 times the product of the quantity x plus 6 times the quantity x minus 1. Okay? And we could check it by going back and factoring it. Keep that 4 outside. And we're going to FOIL it. X times x for our first terms is going to give us x squared. X times negative 1 for our outer terms is going to give us negative x. 6 times x for our inner terms is going to give us plus 6x. And then 6 times negative 1 is going to give us negative 6. We can combine these two, and that's going to give us a 5x. So 4x squared, because we're going to distribute. 4 times negative 5 is going to give us negative 20x. And 4 times negative 6 is going to bring us back to our negative 24, which is where we started. Okay? And so that is how you would work that problem. Okay, now for the next one, I want you to look at this problem. I have 5x squared plus 11x plus 2. Well, 11 and 2 are both prime. Well, actually 5, 11, and 2 are all prime. So there's no GCF that I can pull out. So this one is a special one that we have to do. What we have to do is we have to multiply our A and our C. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do that. And I'm going to multiply 5 times 2. And 5 times 2 gives me 10. So what I need to do is I need to figure out factors of 10 that when I add them, since this is a plus plus, give me 11. Well, of course, you know, the only factors of 10 are 1 and 10. And 2 and 5. So it's going to have to be 1 and 10. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically write out what it looks like after you FOIL it. And I'm going to kind of group it. And in some cases, this has to be kind of sometimes it's kind of like a guess and check. But because I have some background knowledge, I'm going to kind of use that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this 11x down into these two outer and inner numbers. So I'm going to do 5x squared plus x plus 10x plus 2. Okay? So all I did was I just took this trinomial and I broke it down into what it would look like in FOIL, I guess. You know, the outer, the first term, the last term, the outer, and the inner. So then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to group these together. And I'm going to see if there is a GCF for each of those. And I look, and 5x squared and x both have an x in common. So I'm going to pull that out. And if I pull that 5x, and if I pull that x out, x times 5x would give me 5x squared. X times 1 would give me x. Okay? Plus 10x and 2 have a GCF of 2. And so 2 times 5x would give me 10x. 2 times 1 would give me 2. Now, do you notice the trick? Whenever I factored those GCFs out, do you see how I was left with the same thing in my parentheses? I was left with that same binomial. That is what you want to happen, because what you can do then is you can go back and you can regroup. And so what I can do is it's kind of like a reverse distributive property. I'm going to pull what's outside my parentheses together, x plus 2, and make one binomial, and then leave that 5x plus 1. Okay? So what would have happened if we had put 10x with 5x squared? X and 2 wouldn't have had any GCF, so you wouldn't have been able to put them together because you couldn't have pulled anything apart. Okay, so if you get one and you're not left with the same thing in parentheses, if when you pull out that GCF on both of them, you're not left with the same thing in parentheses, you know that you did it wrong. Okay, so I'm going to just go back and check it. X times 5x is going to give me 5x squared. X times 1 is going to give me x. 2 times 5x for my inner terms is going to give me 10x. And then 2 times 1, is going to give me 2. Combine it, and I get 5x squared plus 11x plus 2. Okay? And it brings us right back to this. Okay? So let's try another one. We're going to try one more today, and then that's going to be it for today, and we'll pick this back up tomorrow. So 6x squared, 13 and 5. 13 and 5 are primes, so there's nothing I can pull out. So I'm going to multiply 6 times 5. Okay? And so 6 times 5 is going to give me 30. And I can see that I'm adding because it's plus plus. So I'm going to think, okay, well, 1 and 30, no way. You can't add 1 and 30 and get that. 2 and 15, no way. 3 and 10. Okay, so I have 3 and 10. So I'll look at what I have. If I break 13 down into 3 and 10, I'm going to put the 3 with the 6 and the 10 with the 5, because 10 and 6 make share factors, but 3 and 5 don't. So I'm going to rewrite that as 6x squared plus 3x, plus 10x plus 5. Okay? And I'm going to group together. Okay? And so I look and I see, okay, well, 6 and 3, I can pull a 3 out of that. X squared and x, I can pull an x. Okay? 3x, 3 times 2 would give me 6. X times x would give me x squared. 3x times 1 would give me 3x. Okay. So I know whenever I factor this one out, whenever I pull a GCF out, I better end up with 2x plus 1. So 5 can be pulled out of both of those. 5 times 2x gives me 10x. 5 times 1 gives me 5. And if you look, there it is. And so my two binomials would be the quantity of 3x plus 5 times the quantity 2x plus 1. Okay? And to check it, I would do 3x times 2 for my first terms, and I'd get 6x squared. 3x times 1 for my last term. For my outer terms. Thank you. And then 5x times, or 5 times 2x is 10x. And then 5 times 1 is 5. In the middle, so I'd have 6x squared plus 13x plus 5. And that brings me right back to what I had at the beginning. Okay? This is where we're going to pick up tomorrow because we only did plus plus, so we still have plus negative, and we still have plus minus and minus minus. So we're going to pick up with this tomorrow, okay? And these kind of trinomials are ax squared plus bx plus c. This is when your trinomial has a coefficient with your x squared other than 1. I love you. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.